My brother texted, "You'll co-sign my new truck." Then my mom threatened to cut me off when I said no. So I canceled our shared credit line and stopped paying for everyone else's bad choices. My brother texted at 7:36 on a Wednesday morning. No greeting, no explanation, not even a question mark. I replied, "Dream on." 10 minutes later, my mother sent her answer in capital letters, "Refuse and you're cut off from family events." My name is Lisa Bennett. I'm 34 and I investigate suspicious marine insurance claims in Baltimore, Maryland. I spend my days exposing staged boat accidents, inflated repair bills, and people who believe family connections can shield them from consequences. Yet for years, I had ignored the same pattern inside my own family. My brother had already destroyed one financed car by racing through a flooded underpass, then blamed the engine, the city, and everyone except himself. My mother covered the deductible and called him unlucky. That was her word whenever he created a disaster someone else had to pay for. Now he wanted a luxury pickup costing more than my first house deposit, and he expected my credit to make it possible. They had forgotten one detail. Years earlier, I had opened an emergency business credit line to save my mother's catering company. She and my brother were authorized users, but I was the guarantor. That night, I called the bank, removed both users, canceled every linked card, and froze the remaining balance. At 8:15 the next morning, my phone showed 63 missed calls. A dealership manager had called twice. My mother had called 21 times. My brother left a voicemail saying, "You have no idea what you just did." He was right. I didn't. Not yet. Before I tell you what he said next and what I uncovered after refusing to rescue him again, tell me what time is it where you are and where are you watching from? I want to see how far this family secret travels. At 8:18, I played Jason's voicemail. "Call the bank and undo this right now," he snapped. "You embarrassed me at the dealership. Mom's catering payments are frozen. You're destroying 2 livelihoods because you woke up feeling powerful." Behind him, I heard someone ask whether he had another payment method. Jason cursed before the recording ended. The dealership's message revealed what he had hidden. At exactly 8:15, he had attempted to charge an $11,800 down payment on a new black pickup to our shared credit line. He had already negotiated the vehicle, signed preliminary paperwork, and represented the account as money available to him. He assumed I would co-sign afterward, because refusing would make me responsible for ruining the deal. That was Jason's strategy. He never asked before creating an emergency. He created the emergency first, then handed it to whoever was most likely to prevent a public disaster. I called the bank's fraud department instead of calling him. The representative confirmed 3 large attempted transactions during the previous 24 hours. The dealership deposit, a $2,600 payment to a debt consolidation company, and a $1,950 transfer to an unfamiliar account. All had failed after the freeze. She advised me to review 18 months of statements. The answer was waiting in neat columns. Jason had used the line for restaurants, fuel cash advances, personal debts, and sports betting deposits disguised through payment services. My mother made payments just large enough to avoid default. The balance had climbed above $34,000. Statements had gone to an old business email account she managed when I helped establish her catering company. I trusted her to alert me if anything changed. She alerted me only when the spending stopped. At 8:41, she called again. "Lisa, thank God. There's been a misunderstanding." "No," I said. "There's been $34,000 of understanding I wasn't allowed to see." After a short silence, her voice became soft and wounded. "Your brother has been struggling. I was protecting his dignity. With my credit, with the family's resources, it isn't the family's account, it's mine," she sighed. "That attitude is exactly why people think you've changed." The answer to which people arrived immediately. My aunt asked why I'd closed my mother's business. A cousin wanted to know why I had stranded Jason without transportation. Another relative said my mother was crying so hard she could barely speak. Within an hour, Linda Bennett had transformed unauthorized spending into a story about a successful daughter punishing her struggling family. She neglected to mention that her catering company had not used the line for legitimate expenses in nearly 2 years. She also admitted that Jason owned a working sedan. He simply considered it embarrassing because a coworker had bought a new truck. By noon, the family group chat contained 47 messages. Jason claimed I had become cold after receiving a promotion. My mother said my career made me suspicious of everyone. An uncle reminded me who had supported me before I became successful. I typed 3 responses and deleted all of them. Defending myself in that chat would only give them words to twist. Instead, I exported the statements, changed the old email password, and secured every record. At 1:20, my supervisor, Renee Walsh, called me into her office. Someone had filed a complaint accusing me of intimidating financially vulnerable people and abusing confidential information for personal revenge. The sender claimed to be a former client, but provided no claim number, vessel name, or verifiable identity. The complaint included language copied from my company biography. Jason had moved beyond family gossip. He was attacking my career. Renee had known me for 6 years and recognized the complaint as suspicious, but policy required a review. Until it was resolved, I would be removed from 2 major investigations. Jason knew that accusations involving professional ethics could damage an investigator even after being disproven. He had deliberately constructed a lie to threaten the one part of my life he knew I valued most. At 2:06, he texted, "This can all stop when you fix the credit line." I took a screenshot and replied, "Thank you for putting that in writing." The typing indicator appeared vanished, then returned. No response came. That afternoon, I reviewed a marina fire claim for a retired electrician named Mr. Alvarez. His insurer had mistakenly classified essential safety equipment as cosmetic upgrades. Correcting the mistake increased his settlement enough to save his small charter business. When I called him, he became quiet. "You just saved my livelihood," he said. At that same, my family was telling everyone I destroyed livelihoods. The difference was simple. Mr. Alvarez provided honest records and accepted responsibility. Jason wanted me to finance a fantasy and call it loyalty. That evening, a commercial client emailed asking whether rumors about my unstable family situation should concern him. Jason had contacted one of the marina owners connected to my work and told him I was under investigation for financial misconduct. I forwarded the email to Renee, saved a copy, and called an attorney recommended by my company. By then, I no longer felt guilty. I felt focused. The question was no longer whether I would co-sign a truck. It was how far Jason and my mother had gone because they believed I would never examine the records. Jason arrived at my townhouse 2 nights later at 9:12. I knew the exact time because my doorbell camera recorded him looking into the lens and covering it with his hand. He apparently forgot about the side camera above my garage. He pounded hard enough to shake the photographs in my hallway. "Lisa, open up. We're settling this tonight." I answered through the door. "Leave the property. I'm not a stranger. I'm your brother. Then behave like one." He struck the door again. "Bah, Mom lost a catering contract because her card was declined. I'm about to lose my job because I don't have reliable transportation. You're pretending this is another investigation." It became an investigation when you used my credit without permission and filed a false complaint with my employer. He stopped pounding. "I don't know what you're talking about. You used the phrase financially vulnerable people in both your message to Mom and the complaint. You submitted it after visiting my company profile. You're paranoid. Then you won't mind explaining it to my attorney." For a moment, I thought he might leave. Instead, he kicked a ceramic flower pot into the railing, tore the house number plaque from the wall, and threw it onto the walkway. "Open the door. You don't get to destroy my future and hide behind lawyers." I dialed emergency services when he grabbed the handle and slammed his shoulder against the door. "I'm calling the police," I warned. "Call them," he shouted. "I'll tell them you stole family money." That sentence clarified everything. Jason believed confidence could replace evidence because it always had. My mother repeated his version, relatives accepted it, and anyone who questioned him became the villain. But police reports were not family dinners. Bank records could not be silenced by tears. I activated every security camera in the house. Which family money did I steal the credit line? Mom built that business. She built the catering company. I guaranteed the account. She paid it. She paid minimums after you spent it. He kicked the lower door panel. "You think you're smarter than everyone because you look at paperwork all day." "No, I think paperwork matters because people lie." Red and blue lights appeared down the street. Jason immediately changed. His shoulders relaxed, his voice softened, and he raised his hands as if he had been waiting calmly. He told the officers we were having a family disagreement and that I had become emotional. I showed them the recordings before opening the damage my property, strike the door, and threatened to accuse me of theft. Jason was not arrested because the damage was limited and he had not entered the house, but officers issued a trespass warning and created an incident report. I chose documentation instead of immediate charges. It was not mercy. It established a timeline before he could invent one. As officers escorted him toward the perfectly functional sedan he claimed had left him without transportation, he turned and said, "You're going to regret making this public." I replied, "You made it public when you contacted my employer." The following morning, my mother accused me of involving police in a private misunderstanding. She said Jason had been humiliated and pushed beyond his limits. She never asked whether I had been frightened inside my own home. Her concern always flowed toward the person causing the damage, never the person expected to absorb it. At work, Renee informed me that the anonymous came from an internet network linked to Jason's employer, Chesapeake Marine Supply. Our legal department sent a preservation notice requiring the company to retain network records. Jason sold marine engines and navigation equipment to many of the same marina operators who knew me professionally. By spreading lies, he had used company systems to interfere with a firm that regularly referred customers to his employer. His manager soon discovered that Jason had told coworkers I was unstable under criminal investigation and likely to lose a professional license I did not even hold. He had also searched the customer database for businesses connected to my cases. By Friday afternoon, he was suspended. My mother called immediately. "This has gone too far." I agree. "Then tell his employer you misunderstood." I didn't. He could lose his job. He used company information to target my clients. He was upset. Being upset explains a feeling. It doesn't erase a decision. She accused me of enjoying his downfall. For a moment, the accusation touched the guilt she had trained into me. Then I looked at the damage to my door and asked myself whether she would call it enjoyment if our positions were reversed. "I'm not enjoying it," I said. I'm simply not preventing it. When anger failed, she cried. She reminded me that she had raised us after our father died and claimed she never imagined one child would turn against another. Then she threatened to exclude me from Thanksgiving. You threatened that before I closed the account, I reminded her. This was never about repairing the family. It was about controlling my answer. I ended the call. That night, someone scratched "greedy liar" across my garage door. A side camera captured a hooded figure and part of a vehicle with a distinctive dent on the rear bumper. Jason's sedan had the same damage. This time, I filed a formal police report and gave them the footage. Then I opened the oldest financial records I could find. If Jason was willing to threaten my home and career over one frozen account, I needed to know what else that account was hiding. Amy Mercer was not the kind of friend who promised everything would be fine. She was a forensic accountant who had spent 12 years finding money people insisted did not exist. When I showed her the statements, she opened her laptop and asked, "How far back can we go?" We spent Saturday matching transactions against old catering invoices, tax documents, and family event accounts. By noon, we had identified 3 patterns. The first involved Jason. For almost 4 years, he had treated the business credit line as a private emergency fund. Whenever his balance became dangerous, my mother used catering revenue to make minimum payments. When the business account lacked money, she transferred funds from an account labeled Bennett Family Heritage Committee. The committee paid for reunions, memorial donations, graduation gifts, and assistance for elderly relatives. Family members contributed every year because they trusted Linda to manage it responsibly. The second pattern involved fabricated catering expenses. My mother entered payments to non-existent food vendors, then transferred similar amounts to Jason. Some vendor names resembled businesses that had closed years earlier. Amy found 12 suspicious entries totaling more than $19,000. The third pattern involved me. 5 years earlier, my mother said she needed money for emergency surgery. I sent $8,000 and organized a family collection. The surgery was real, but insurance covered most of it. The remaining donations were never returned or disclosed. 3 weeks later, Jason paid off a repossession balance and moved into a new apartment. I remembered canceling a vacation, emptying an investment account, and apologizing because I could not provide more. "What would you call this?" I asked. Amy studied the records. At minimum, misrepresentation and misuse of entrusted funds, depending on how the committee is structured and what she reported for taxes, possibly more. I did not cry. The discovery. It too precise. My mother had not merely favored Jason. She had built a financial system around protecting him and used my reliability as collateral. Amy opened another file. The $1,950 transfer attempted before I froze. The account belonged to an LLC, registered in my mother's name, Harbor Family Events. LLC had been created 8 months earlier using her home address. It had no visible customer's website or business number, yet money from the Heritage Committee catering account and shared credit line had passed through it. One memo read, "JB Vehicle Program." Jason had not suddenly demanded a truck. They had been preparing for months. Their plan was to use my line for the down payment, pressure me into co-signing, and classify the vehicle as a business expense under my mother's LLC while Jason used it personally. If he defaulted, I would carry the debt. The 10-minute gap between Jason's demand and my mother's threat was not an emotional reaction. It was coordination. "Why would they risk something so obvious?" I asked. "Because it worked before," Amy replied. "People become careless when they mistake someone's patience for permanent permission." We created a timeline showing each major transfer, false vendor, and payment linked to Jason's debts. I sent copies to my attorney and the bank investigator. My attorney advised me not to make public accusations until every record was verified, but told me to remove my name from all family accounts and demand a formal accounting of the Heritage Fund. Before leaving, I found a draft email my mother had never sent. It was addressed to several relatives. "Lisa has agreed to guarantee Jason's new work vehicle. This is her way of contributing after being unavailable for so many family responsibilities. She had announced my agreement before asking me. She claimed the truck would help transport supplies for family events. Although Jason had no business transportation role and his employer offered no vehicle allowance, his luxury was being disguised as everyone's benefit. That evening, my uncle called. My mother had scheduled a family accountability dinner for Sunday. She wanted me to explain why I had endangered her business and Jason's job. Nearly 30 relatives were expected, including people who had donated to the Heritage Fund. I accepted immediately. My uncle sounded surprised. "Linda said you were afraid to face everyone." "I'm not afraid to face them," I said. I was waiting until I knew what to bring. My mother held the accountability dinner in a church banquet room where she had catered weddings, memorials, and retirement parties for years. The location was deliberate. It was familiar ground filled with people who associated her with service and generosity. She arranged family photographs near the entrance and placed a donation basket beside a sign advertising the next Bennett reunion. Jason stood near the buffet table wearing a new blazer and waiting for an apology. His suspension had become a termination. Chesapeake Marine Supply discovered that he had accessed customer records, contacted my clients, and used company systems to submit the anonymous complaint. Jason told relatives I had pressured the company to fire him. My mother had also lost 2 catering contracts. She claimed I destroyed her business, although she still had another bank account and business card. Both were simply near their limits. I arrived with a slim binder and a flash drive. Amy sat quietly in the back. My attorney had warned me not to turn the evening into an accusation. I would present verified facts, correct lies, and give committee members access to their records. What they did afterward was their decision. After dinner, my mother tapped her glass. We're here because this family is hurting. Lisa's choices have affected all of us. She said Jason needed a dependable work vehicle, that I had previously agreed to support the family through our shared credit arrangement, and that I froze the account without warning, humiliated him at the dealership, damaged her catering business, and interfered with his employer. Jason stood. I'm not perfect, but I didn't deserve to lose my job because my sister wanted revenge. The word was useful. It made every consequence sound like something I had created. My mother invited me to explain myself. I carried the binder to the front. Who here knew the shared credit line was legally mine? No relatives raised their hands. That's a technicality, my mother said. It's the first fact, I replied. I explained that I had opened the line in 2018 to save her catering company. I was the guarantor. She and Jason were authorized users, and the agreement allowed only business purchases with disclosure of personal charges. I placed copies of the contract on the table. Over 18 months, more than $34,000 was spent or advanced. Most of it had nothing to do with catering. It included Jason's restaurants, betting deposits, debts, cash withdrawals, and personal expenses. Jason laughed. She's making personal spending sound criminal. I haven't called it criminal. I called it unauthorized. My mother insisted she had approved the spending. You weren't authorized to approve it on my behalf. I made the payments, some of them. I connected the flash drive to the television. A transaction timeline appeared. The rest came from the Bennett Family Heritage Committee. The room changed instantly. Until then, relatives could dismiss the conflict as a sibling argument. The committee money belonged emotionally and possibly legally to everyone who had contributed. My great-aunt asked what I meant. At least 27 transfers moved from the Heritage account into Mom's catering company or her new LLC. Several were followed by payments toward Jason's personal charges. My mother called them reimbursements for events. I displayed 12 supposed vendors alongside registration results, showing that several did not exist or had closed years earlier. A forensic accountant reviewed these entries, I said. Anyone who contributed has the right to request a full accounting. My uncle asked directly, did you use memorial funds to pay Jason's debts? My mother's face hardened. I moved money where the family needed it. That isn't what I asked, he replied. Jason stepped forward. Everyone benefited from Mom's work. Lisa is acting like a prosecutor because she hates seeing anyone else receive help. I looked at him. You told the dealership I had agreed to co-sign. You would have if you weren't selfish. That's not an answer. You always help eventually. The admission settled over the room. He had not misunderstood my answer. He had assumed my refusal would not last. I displayed the dealership report showing the attempted $11,800 charge at 8:15, followed by my mother's draft email announcing I had agreed to guarantee the vehicle. She accused me of reading her private email. It was stored in the business account linked to the credit line I guarantee. I said you announced my consent before asking me. She turned to the relatives. I was trying to make something positive happen for my son. Is that a crime? My aunt stood. You told me the reunion fund was short because catering costs increased. You asked me for another $2,000. I planned to replace it. My mother answered. With what? She had no reply. Voices rose. Relatives demanded statements and asked whether graduation gifts had been reduced to cover her missing money. My great-aunt began because she had contributed from a fixed income. My mother's reputation did not collapse in one dramatic moment. It dissolved transaction by transaction. Jason grabbed the remote and turned off the television. Enough. You wanted to embarrass us. Congratulations. I wanted the threats and lies to stop. I replied, you got me fired. You used your employer's customer database to target my clients. Because you wouldn't listen. I listened when you demanded my signature. I said no. He moved close enough that 2 relatives stepped between us. You cut off Mom's business. You sent police after me. You turned everyone against us. Can't I canceled access to my credit? Your employer reviewed your conduct. Police reviewed the camera footage. The family reviewed the records. I did not create those facts. My mother sank into a chair, suddenly unable to control which version people believed. I placed a sealed envelope before her. This is a formal demand for a full accounting and repayment of unauthorized charges. My attorney has sent copies to the necessary parties. I am removing my name from every account. Contract and business document connected to you or Jason. She whispered, you would sue your own mother. I hope disclosure and repayment make litigation unnecessary. Oh, you're choosing money over family. No, I'm refusing to let money be the price of belonging. My great-aunt removed her envelope from the donation basket. Then my aunt did the same. Within minutes, the basket was empty. Relatives asked my uncle to become temporary treasurer. The church administrator informed my mother that future events would require payment in advance. Jason stormed out and slammed the door. No one followed him. Before I left, my mother looked at me and said, "You'll regret the day you did this." I returned the original agreement to my binder. No, I regret how long I waited. At 8:15 the following morning, 1 week after the dealership charge failed, the bank permanently closed the shared credit line. My credit remained intact. Jason's truck agreement was canceled. My mother's accounts entered review, and the Heritage Committee froze all withdrawals. This time, my phone was almost silent. Consequences did not arrive as one satisfying explosion. They came through certified letters, canceled contracts, declined applications, and conversations no one could control through family loyalty. Jason remained unemployed for 4 months. Chesapeake Marine Supply documented his misuse of customer information, making it difficult for him to find another sales job in the regional boating industry. The dealership retained part of his personal reservation fee because he misrepresented his financing. He sold expensive electronics, left his apartment, and returned to our mother's house. The black pickup went to another buyer. My mother lost access to the church venue and 2 preferred vendors. The damage was not caused solely by the canceled credit line. During the accounting review, vendors found late invoices and conflicting payment records. Several clients requested their deposits back after discovering that event money had been mixed with unrelated accounts. The Heritage Committee appointed my uncle and 2 cousins as the administrators. They found more than $31,000 in undocumented transfers over 5 years. Some supported genuine emergencies, but many benefited Jason without disclosure. My mother agreed to sell unused catering equipment and enter a repayment plan. Had she refused, relatives were prepared to take civil action. For the first time, she had to explain herself without me standing beside her to soften the truth. Police could not conclusively prove Jason damaged my garage because the footage did not show his face, but the vehicle resemblance trespass report and timing remained documented. My attorney sent a cease and desist letter, and Jason never returned to my property. My employer completed its review and cleared me. Investigators confirmed that his complaint was false and came from a network associated with his workplace. Renee restored my cases, and the company notified affected clients that the allegation was malicious and unsupported. One client later referred a major commercial fraud case to us. My work led to a promotion overseeing a small investigation team. I did not celebrate Jason's failure, but I allowed myself to celebrate that his lie had not become my identity. Family events changed. Thanksgiving moved to my uncle's house. I was invited, but declined that year. Temporary distance was not punishment. I needed space from people who still treated truth as an unfortunate disruption instead of a necessary correction. Some relatives accused me of going too far. Others apologized for believing the first story they heard. I accepted apologies without pretending trust returned immediately. Anyone could regret being wrong after documents appeared. Trust required different behavior before the next crisis. 5 months after the dinner, Jason emailed me. The subject line read, "No excuses." He admitted filing the complaint, contacting my clients, and assuming I would eventually sign the loan. He wrote that he resented my financial stability while he felt left behind. Whenever I rescued him, he experienced relief followed by shame. Instead of confronting that shame, he blamed me. He did not ask for money or request that I contact his former employer. He said he had taken a warehouse job and entered a debt management program. His final line read, "I thought being your brother meant you couldn't let me fall. I understand now that I kept jumping because I believed you had to catch me." It was the first apology from him that named specific actions and did not contain the word "but." I waited a week before replying. "I acknowledge your apology. I am not ready to resume our previous relationship. There will be no shared accounts loans, employment interventions, or unannounced visits. Future contact depends on consistent behavior, not promises." He replied, "Understood." My mother took longer. For months, her messages concerned repayment records, tax documents, and committee questions. Shortly before my 35th birthday, she mailed a handwritten letter. She admitted she had confused protection with love. After my father died, she feared Jason would collapse if allowed to fail. Each time she covered a debt, invented an excuse, or pressured me to help, she told herself she was preserving the family. Instead, she divided us into roles. Jason created emergencies, she managed the story, and I paid the cost. She also admitted intentionally redirecting the surgery donations because she feared Jason would lose his apartment and job. Rather than tell the truth, she used her illness because she knew no one would question it. The letter ended, "I taught him that consequences were cruelty, and I taught you that love meant compliance. I harmed both of you differently." That sentence mattered more than tears. It showed she understood the system, not only the outcome. Still, I did not rush to forgive her. We met at a public cafe. She brought proof of 6 completed repayment installments and documents showing she had closed Harbor Family Events, LLC. "I'm not asking you to trust me today," she said. "I'm asking whether I can keep earning the chance." I explained the conditions. No financial requests, no relatives used as messengers, no threats involving holidays or funerals, no sharing private information, and no rewriting Jason's intimidation. If any condition was broken, contact would stop again. She nodded. "I understand. Do you understand? Or are you agreeing because you're afraid I'll leave both?" She answered, But fear is not your responsibility to fix. Over the next year, Jason kept his warehouse job, made debt payments, and eventually became a shift supervisor. He drove the same repaired sedan he had once called embarrassing. My mother rebuilt a smaller catering service using cash deposits and transparent bookkeeping overseen by an outside accountant. Their lives became less comfortable, but more honest. That was the true price they paid. Not merely lost jobs, money contracts, and reputation, but the loss of their belief that I would always protect them from themselves. A year after the credit line closed, I attended my first family gathering since the accountability dinner. It was held at my uncle's house, and there was no donation basket by the entrance. A printed committee report sat on a table for anyone who wanted to review it. Every expense from the previous 12 months had been documented. My mother arrived with 2 trays of food she had already paid to prepare. She did not organize the event or control the guest list. When relatives asked about her repayment plan, she answered without changing the subject. Jason arrived in his old sedan. He greeted me politely and did not force a private conversation. Later, while we cleared plates, he mentioned that he had saved enough to replace the transmission if it failed. That sounds responsible, I said. He gave an embarrassed smile. It sounds slower than having someone co-sign. Slower isn't always worse. No, he replied. Sometimes slower is the first time it's actually yours. We were not suddenly close. I did not erase the complaint threats or damage to my home, because he learned to make payments. Forgiveness did not mean restoring his previous access. It meant releasing the need to relive the injury while allowing evidence, not guilt, to determine our future. Before I left, my mother asked whether she could call the following week. She asked instead of announcing. The difference sounded small, but families are often rebuilt through small differences repeated consistently. Canceling the shared credit line did not destroy my family. It exposed the version of family we had been protecting, one where the most responsible person carried the greatest burden, the loudest person received the most help, and love was measured by how much damage someone was willing to absorb. For years, I believed saying no made me selfish. The truth was harder. Every time I rescued Jason, I helped him postpone adulthood. Every time I surrendered to my mother's threats, I taught her that fear worked. Enabling did not prevent the family from breaking. It allowed a broken pattern to continue without being named. Boundaries are not walls built to punish people. They are doors with conditions for entry. Respect the home, tell the truth, accept responsibility, and the door may remain open. Threaten, exploit, or manipulate, and the person inside has every right to close it. Temporary separation can also be an act of care. Distance gave Jason nowhere to direct his failures except toward his own choices. It forced my mother to face the money she had moved and the stories she had created. Most importantly, it gave me enough silence to hear my own judgment without their panic speaking over it. Not every family changes after facing consequences. Some people lose access and spend their lives blaming the person who finally said no. Reconciliation should never be promised simply because someone apologizes. Real change appears in records, routines, repaired damage, respected limits, and months of behavior no one has to demand. My family did not return to what it had been. That was the victory. We built something smaller, less sentimental, and more truthful. I was no longer the emergency account automatic cosigner or daughter expected to purchase her seat at the table. I was simply Lisa, a sister and daughter who could love people without financing their denial. At 8:15 that Wednesday morning, 63 missed calls made me believe I had caused a catastrophe. What I had really done was stop interrupting one. Sometimes the consequence a family fears most is the only thing powerful enough to teach it a lesson. And sometimes the person called cruel is simply the first person brave enough to stop paying for everyone else's choices.